But this
Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning, Wildcat Radio. Have had tons of
he's gone to the house. 50 to the 45 to 40. Cam Smith down the sideline, one man to beat, and he's going to move.
Radio Coaches Show here, sponsored each week by Dependable Heating and Air Conditioning right here in McClenny, Florida. Oscar Gray and his team that's this year, and about that Florida down there on I-75. It's got a lot of touchdowns, a lot of 22 team, but I got to.
You know, those other guys that have practiced since January and worked out and did everything, a lot of guys got a bunch of time to get in there and play. So it's good for those guys. I mean, selfishly, I think some of us want to get in and get out of there. But
one in good fashion down at Sun Contracting and Plumbing, Robbie Foster and his folks that fed the team on Friday night. We mentioned that during the game. You know, it takes to appreciate all the work that they do.
Extra. I saw him up there with you guys.
Yeah, John Meadows from WFBB. You know, he's the guy. He's a local guy here. Great guy. Road trip with us this week, so John, when he's not able to be there, so that allowed John to take a road trip with us and head down there to Sun Lake. So we left in the afternoon, might have stopped at Texas Roadhouse along the way, had a steak, maybe.
Yeah.
I can't confirm or deny that. Playoffs last week. So the last thing you want to do is not enter the playoffs with any momentum. And I really thought the Wildcats started out that first half last week and ended the game with some momentum leaving that place with some confidence of things we've seen early in the year. You know, Kanias Williams plays. We saw Orlando Holland continue to disrupt like he has all year long. You know, I just can't.
They don't find defensive ends that want to do that. And he loves that. When I put the kickoff team together early in the year, I mean, he's first one out there, you know, with his deep voice saying he wants to be on the team. So. Yeah, it was. It's fun to see those guys that want to do that and help on special teams too.
Kind of put that thing away and maybe get a running clock before the half was over, but it ended up being 33 points on the board instead of 30 down like that. But either way, a good first half. The Wildcats came out. You know, we threw the ball around a little bit. We ran the football, played great defense. I think sometimes is in a win like that when you hold the turnover in the second half. And this year. A lot of young at the high school, some 3 years around again, and the way that defense is played, you know, it's been something to sure again on the radio this past Friday night. Cale Cruz, those are two guys that are young guys that are going to be around. Chestnut, we talk about Seth each week. Almost had another interception this past Friday night. So this season, first half of the season, they've been there. A unit that is playing well together at the right time.
They're very unselfish. You know, you take a game like a Eula game where we had to take some more skill. They have defenses, but defense wins championships. So hopefully they can.
He's had some good games this year. Everything else.
He's at the high school level to come out and do what he's done. Defensive end, opposite Orlando. He's done a good job.
Good all-around play for the defense. You know, late in the game when you had a chance to put a guy like Hudson
ran it good. I'm sure he would have liked a chance to throw a coach, and I'm sure he'd have liked to do that. Would have liked to have thrown the ball, but he did a good job reading what he was supposed to read and wasn't scared to run it up in there.
No,
but you don't see that from
a lot of the ball right there at their goalster in the future.
Well, I told you everybody was happy except Brock Boatwright. He wanted to kick that extra point, and I said, "Sorry, man, we're going to go for 2 to try to get the clock running so we can get out."
Happened, you know, the win. He talked last week for a while about
So how does a team bounce back from that? Does that and I win, but
there. You just look for your sport, and then they'll have. We talked about it just briefly, girls, and we talked about it later happening within
volleyball. They were district champs up. Troy Winkler, Almogan Thomas qualified in the fall. They want to see a cheerleading competition. 6, I think it's 6.
I'm just thinking 500 meters. Yeah, that's a lot of activity. I'll be excited to maybe take in a few basketball. Yeah. Remind me, and I thought they were going to take down the Chiefs and let the Chiefs come back and get the win.
I didn't see. I read about it this morning. Said that they came back in overtime.
And I bet you 8 or 8 is Palatka per year because of the district. A lot of different things, but within this suburban look now that you have.
You look at the bracket and
talking about normal things here. Game time 7 o'clock.
Yep. It's just. I mean, it is what it is, but this stuff people don't know the rules that we have to kind of go by.
Yeah, each year, and the Wildcats, basically it's kind of like, whether it's saying that because not only, it's rights for the broadcast.
So it's, like I said, it's expensive, I mean, our officials for the last game was about $1,100. I mean, so people, just.
What? But I'll tell you this. So a kid can play baseball. That gets a question. What do you do with our $85? Well, let me tell you. $85 per kid doesn't go very far, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't go very far, and you can vouch for that. I mean, went to the movies,
Yeah.
and you're talking about a full season of baseball for 85. Now, I know we weren't here to talk about Little League baseball, but that's what I'm saying. You get out there that you don't always normally see in the state playoffs. At least we don't normally see for where we've been in the past several years, right? So those teams would be Baldwin. Those teams would be Yulee. Bradford, that's a team that gets to the playoffs a lot. And, everything else doesn't.
And you look forward to having those opportunities. And, I've had to tell the coaches we're not going to look forward, though, because we got a tough opponent coming in here Friday.
Yeah, that's pretty fresh. So within the last 4 weeks, we were over there playing the Hornets. That was a game where we were doing some really good things early on. It looked like a game that we might actually take control of. However, as you move into the second half of that game, it got away from us a little bit. And before, in my mind, I'm thinking, man, if we lose this game, this was a game we really could have won, And then lo and behold, we get a couple of touchdowns late, we get a couple of scores late. We got the field goals to bring it back to a 30-24 game, and then
one sort of bigger college offer. The quarterback's committed to Valdosta State.
Valdosta State, yeah.
And the kid can throw the ball, and they, actually, he's done a good job with those guys, and he has a bunch of weapons. I think offensively we've got to clean it up some. We've worked a lot on that since that game. But we got to stay inside ourselves. I mean, like I said, the sunlight. If we can play like that, not have the penalties and stuff, I think I'll be happy. Defensively, they just got to trust each other. I mean, like you said, we're playing with 5th, 6th, 10th graders out there. They just got to trust each other. To do this week, and hopefully everything works out.
Friday night at Memorial Stadium, 7 o'clock. Runs a Wildcat formation.
Yep.
And somebody's got to spy him, Coach. Second half, he hurt us.
He's switched some things.
Coach, he went to teach at different for office in Baker County in order to do. When I talked to Bobby that day at Pineview Golf Club about the radio broadcast, I was a young guy, probably 22, 23 years old at the time. I talked to Bobby that day, and I told him how much I enjoyed listening to the radio, and he said that I broadcast for as a year. I'll tell you something. He got sick a couple of years ago up in Georgia. All that people talked about in this area. And Andrew Alexander was, Gerard Warren was the defensive guy that played on that team, and they were all right there in Union County. But anyway, we went to the state championship. Proof's running back was Travis, a 100-yard rusher all year long, right there with Emmett Smith. He had all, if you all those yards to Travis,
one more, that's all that matters. Especially in the last game.
The last game. So it was just incredible. But from that time, we were a big part of that, Coach. The prior coach, Coach Rogers, was a big part of that. Just so much success and so much time, and the memories that I have. We could sit here and I could tell you stories like that all night long about the, not only with the Wildcats, but the other things that being with Bobby Hart exposed me to. So I'm going to miss it, but this is my last year with the Wildcats. So I kind of just wanted to share that before we close up. Got finished with playing high school football. Tim Wilder, and David Crummy joined, which is just so that I can take that time back. The Tennessee game was 3 points. The LSU game was 1 point. Yeah. They lost 2 games regular. Yeah, at least the baseball play into the play. They handled the Braves. I know a lot of players with a 2-1 lead in the World Series over the Astros. They lost 3. Hank was playing, and defensively ended up going to JU and played offense over there. He was a fullback on football over at JU on the off side. Getting a chance to touch. Went to JU, and you remember Kerwin Bell. At one point in time, Kerwin Bell was going to be one of those guys that came back and coached in some capacity with the University of Florida, but it never played out. I thought offense 80s, and Auburn rolled into town, and Kerwin Bell was hurt in that game. They had a guy named Rodney Brewer that played. He was a left-handed guy. He went on to play with the St. Louis Cardinals, Major League Baseball, later on, but he was the punter at the time.
You do know a lot of stuff.
Well, he was the punter at the time, and Auburn had a 17-0 lead at halftime, and the crowd went crazy because Rodney Brewer, he was great. After halftime, Kerwin Bell came out and was warming up. So Kerwin Bell came into that game against Auburn with a 17-0 deficit and led them back game in the left corner of the end zone. And Auburn had a defensive end named Tracy Rocker at that time, and he went on to play in the NFL. But anyway, The touchdown that Ricky Natil caught made it a 17-16 game. If you ever go back and see the highlights, the biggest play of that day was the fact that Kerwin Bell dropped back to pass on the 2-point conversion to win the game. They won that game 18-17. They survived like a 50-something yard field goal attempt from Auburn at the closing seconds. And I was there to watch that game, and I don't even know why we're talking about that, but I was just thinking about that game. We were talking about Kerwin Bell, and that was one of his games. He also that same year beat Georgia 31-19 in the Gator Bowl down there. In that Florida-Georgia rivalry. Yeah. And in the 80s, Florida didn't beat Georgia very often. I think Bell trivia for you.
Yeah, that's what I said. You know it all.
That was when Florida wore those real short orange mesh jerseys. Like you remember that? Yeah, like that. It's been great talking to you, man. We've just been rambling here for a minute, but the Wildcats fired up and ready. The state playoffs begin. Reserve seats come up to the school either Wednesday or Thursday to pick those out. And what I mean by reserved seats is the middle section at the stadium. Guys, they'll let you know when you can get those tickets. So best of luck, Coach. The Wildcats looking for a win in the playoffs this week against Julie.
Living life together. We're 97.5, the beacon of Baker County.
When you see